Hi, good afternoon. My name is Bracy Harris, and I am a. Oops. Hi, good afternoon. My name is Bracy Harris, and I am a reporter based in for NBC's Digital Enterprise team. And I'm here with you this afternoon to just discuss with you all a recent story I did centering around an upcoming Supreme Court case that's involving a Mississippi law. To just start and give you all some background, in 2018, Mississippi passed a law that would, with few exceptions, prevent patients from having an abortion after 15 weeks of pregnancy. And that law has been struck down so far at the U.S. district level and also at the appellate level. And so now it is at the United States Supreme Court. And what I've been doing in the meantime as we wait for that decision is sort of following what's been happening on the ground. So, over the course of 2 weeks, I went out to the Jackson Women's Health Organization. It's named in the lawsuit. It is the only abortion clinic in the state of Mississippi, and sort of just took in what was happening outside, both from the perspective of looking at interactions of patient escorts who walk women who come to the clinic for services inside, and protesters that try to dissuade them from having an abortion. So, with that, my story closely follows Asia Brown, who is a 20-year-old brought home like a lot of college students because of COVID, and she started volunteering at the clinic. So it discusses a bit about her journey and how she arrived at doing that. And the story also details some of what patients hear and see as they go to the clinic for services. So that's just sort of a brief overview of what I explored. And I can just discuss, a little bit further about Asia. So she's 20 and she's a Mississippi native. And she grew up hearing from both her grandmother and her great grandmother about what life was like in the segregated South. For example, her great grandmother told her about a matriarch in their family who ran away from slavery. And that was really formative to Asia sort of having this burgeoning understanding, in her view, of, as she put it, of the right for people, particularly Black women, to have control over their own bodies. So you flash forward to the year 2021. She's home and comes across this web page that's sort of highlighting what takes place outside of the clinic, and it highlights the volunteer work of patient escorts that try to shield women from protesters or kind of just usher them inside past everything that's happening. So again, it highlights, the story highlights about how she arrived at that work, and it also details what happens outside of the clinic on a pretty regular basis. So to give kind of an overview before I start taking some questions, it's pretty common to witness yelling outside. One morning when I was there was a protester who was trying to yell through the clinic's privacy partition. They have the fence outside, sort of wrapped with black tarp to sort of give the patients some privacy as they come in and out. And there's some gaps where you can actually peek through and see on the other side. And it's common for demonstrators to kind of go up to those gaps and try to speak through them, or so one morning a protester was doing that, and the clinic turned on its music, and then the protester in turn came out with a bullhorn. And because of social distancing, several patients were actually having to sit outside because too many people were in the waiting room. So for about 30 minutes, you had this sort of back and forth of a soundtrack that the volunteers were using to try to drown him out, and him trying to speak over that. So that's, again, kind of just a brief overview. And yeah, I'm gonna look over here to see if we have some questions that might start coming in. So yeah. Okay. So some further details on what inspired Asia to get involved is she already had an interest in reproductive justice work. In high school, she kind of started supplementing her own studies in the classroom with learning about figures in Mississippi's history. And one of the people that she learned about was actually Fannie Lou Hamer, who is known as a civil rights activist and widely for her work with grassroots organizing in the Delta, particularly in Sunflower County around voting rights. But before that, Fannie Lou Hamer actually received a sterilization without her consent. So that inspired her advocacy as well, and that was part of her story as well. And that procedure actually started being dubbed the Mississippi appendectomy, and it was referred to that in other places in the South too. There's a deep history behind that I'd encourage you to become familiar with if you're not. But all of that to say, that's a long-winded way of saying that Asia's always sort of had this deep sense around personal choices and the rights of individuals to exercise those. So she had that background. And again, in early 2021, she becomes aware of the clinic defenders and decides that she wants to get involved. Is Asia the only volunteer at the clinic? So she's not. Right now, there are about 19 individuals that come out in shifts, not necessarily 19 at a time, to escort patients in and out of the clinic. They also might be directing traffic flow from the clinic's parking lot. The program launched around 2013, actually in response to demonstrators coming out to the clinic. So yeah, there's about 19 of them right now, and the numbers of who's involved can kind of ebb and flow because it is volunteer work. Just with any healthcare provider, got a little tongue twisted there. The clinic's open during 9 to 5 working hours. So with that, there, I think, might be some limitations on who has conflicts or might be able to come out during the day. So that's the number that they're at now. And a question about why does Mississippi only have one abortion clinic? So there actually were more clinics in the state at one point, and it's just sort of whittled down over the years. Obviously, there's been certain things playing out in the background that can make it challenging to operate a clinic in the state. To give some context, at the Jackson's Women's Health Organization, their doctors actually come in from out of state to perform those services. So recruiting within Mississippi can be a challenge. Again, something that bears keeping in mind. What I observed from my time out there is that protesters actually recognize the people that come to work at the clinic. And when the clinic director came in one day, they referred to her by name. And so there might be a discomfort level of living, within the area and also going to work, and kind of, there's a bit of, I would say, a stigma still around abortion within the state. So I think just right there, that creates sort of a staffing, personnel challenge. The other thing is, I think providers recognize that in order to, operate in Mississippi, they realized that they might be up against future restrictions or future attempts at restrictions. In 2012, the legislature passed a law that almost shut the clinic down without that would have probably shut the clinic down without the federal court intervening. So I think it's just a really challenging environment for folks to operate in, and that has played a role in the interest level of other operators coming in the future. Okay. Um, Looking to see if there's any more. Um, yeah, so I'll also say something that I think we're still just keeping um, an eye on is just waiting for what happens with the Supreme Court case. Again, it centers around the 2018 Mississippi law, the Gestational Age Act, which would ban, in most cases, abortion after 15 weeks. But of course, if that law is upheld, there could be some broader implications, not only for Mississippi and individuals that might seek such services in the state, but also nationwide. So we're just going to keep keeping an eye on that. And I hope you all will check out the story if you have not already. And just glad to spend some time sharing a little bit more about it with you all today. Thanks.